Hi guys, tonight, the air above the Nile is quiet. The river moves in darkness, carrying cool water between banks of black earth and sleeping villages. Far away, the desert waits beneath the stars, its endless sand holding the warmth of the long day. Along narrow paths of packed dirt, the footprints of thousands of people have already disappeared beneath the evening wind. Lamps flicker inside mud-brick homes. Somewhere, a child turns in sleep. Somewhere else, a baker prepares dough for the coming dawn. Ancient Egypt rests for only a few hours at a time. Long before the first light reaches the horizon, people begin to stir. The life of Egypt follows a rhythm so old that no one can remember when it began. Fathers wake where their fathers once slept. Farmers walk the same roads that their grandfathers walked. Scribes sit beneath the same columns where older scribes once sharpened their reeds. Year after year, season after season, the routines remain almost unchanged. For many people living along the Nile, life does not move quickly. Great kings rise and disappear. New temples are built. Old rulers are buried beneath stone. Yet for ordinary people, the shape of daily life remains much the same. The fields still need water. Bread still needs baking. Nets still need mending. Children still grow up beneath the same burning sun. As the night slowly fades, faint sounds begin to drift through the darkness. A wooden door opens. Sandals scrape against stone. Somewhere in a small courtyard, a woman kneels beside a grinding stone and begins crushing grain into flour. The work is repetitive and heavy, but her hands know every movement without thought. She has done this since childhood. The stars remain overhead as smoke rises from cooking fires. Dogs wander between homes. Donkeys shift quietly where they have been tied for the night. The cool air will not last long. Soon, the heat will return. Most homes are simple places. They are built from mud bricks shaped by hand and dried beneath the desert sun. Their walls protect families from the harsh weather outside, though they cannot keep out every grain of dust. Many houses stand close together, connected by narrow lanes where neighbors greet one another in the early morning. Inside, life is modest. Mats woven from reeds cover the floors. Clay jars hold water and grain. Wooden stools sit near low tables scarred by years of use. In wealthier homes, painted walls and carved furniture may brighten the rooms, but for most Egyptians, comfort comes from familiar routines rather than luxury. Entire families often sleep together in close quarters. Children curl beside parents and grandparents. During the hottest nights, some climb onto rooftops to escape the heavy air trapped inside the house. Above them, the sky stretches wide and silent. Morning arrives gradually. The eastern horizon turns pale. Birds gather along the riverbanks. The first golden light touches the distant desert cliffs. Workers begin their journeys while the day is still cool enough for movement. Farmers leave carrying simple tools across their shoulders. Fishermen walk toward the Nile with rolled nets. Builders head toward quarries and workshops. Scribes tuck writing reeds into small cases and prepare for long hours of careful labor. Their lives are built around repetition. For centuries, Egypt changes very little because its people depend upon patterns that have already proven themselves. The Nile floods. Crops grow. Harvests fill storage rooms. The river retreats. Then the cycle begins once more. The river itself shapes nearly everything. Without the Nile, the land beyond its banks would be empty desert. But every year, floodwaters spread across the fields, leaving behind dark soil rich enough to feed entire cities. Farmers wait patiently for these waters. Their calendars depend upon them. Their hopes depend upon them. When the flooding season arrives, villages watch the river carefully. Men gather near the banks, studying the rising water. Children splash in shallow pools while elders remember floods from years long past. Some seasons bring abundance. Others bring uncertainty. Yet the rhythm rarely changes. People know when to plant. They know when to harvest. They know when to repair irrigation channels cut through the earth by countless hands over countless generations. Many Egyptians spend most of their lives within a few miles of the place where they were born. Their world is not small to them. It is full of fields, markets, shrines, family stories, and familiar faces. A farmer may wake every morning to the same distant hill and fall asleep every night to the same chorus of insects beside the river. Decades pass this way. Children become parents. Parents become grandparents. The landscape remains almost untouched. The work itself is exhausting. By mid-morning, the heat begins to spread across the fields. Workers bend over rows of crops while sweat gathers beneath linen clothing. Sand sticks to bare feet. Muscles ache beneath the weight of tools and baskets. There are no easy days. Wheat and barley must be tended carefully. Irrigation ditches must be cleared of mud. Animals need feeding. Walls need repair after the flood waters withdraw. Every task depends upon human strength. The sun climbs higher. Along dusty roads, merchants lead donkeys loaded with pottery, grain, cloth, and baskets. They move between villages, stopping at markets where voices rise and fall in the dry air. Trade is slow. Journeys take time. Travelers rest beneath whatever shade they can find. Markets are busy places, though even their noise feels softened beneath the heavy heat. Sellers arrange vegetables on woven mats. Fish glisten beneath damp cloths. Potters display bowls and jars shaped from Nile clay. Children weave through the crowds while mothers bargain quietly. Somewhere nearby, a craftsman sits cross-legged beside his tools, shaping wood with patient movements learned years before. Skills pass from one generation to the next. A son watches his father repair fishing nets. A daughter learns how to grind grain and bake bread. Young apprentices carry tools for master craftsmen, repeating simple tasks until their hands understand them completely. In Egypt, knowledge often travels through memory rather than books. The work of scribes is different. While farmers labor beneath the sun, scribes spend their days surrounded by ink, papyrus, and records. Their work is quieter but no less demanding. They count grain stores, record taxes, copy religious texts, and keep track of supplies moving between temples and cities. To become a scribe requires years of practice. Young students sit for hours repeating symbols again and again. Their teachers correct mistakes patiently but firmly. The work can be tedious. Hands cramp. Eyes grow tired. Yet literacy opens doors that remain closed to many others. Inside administrative buildings, the air smells faintly of papyrus and dust. Sunlight slips through narrow windows. Reeds scratch against smooth surfaces. Outside, the city continues its endless motion. Workers haul stone blocks across construction sites. Teams pull ropes in careful coordination. Foremen shout instructions. Water carriers move between laborers, offering brief relief from the heat. The great monuments of Egypt rise slowly, built not in months but in years and decades. Behind every stone stand thousands of ordinary people whose names are forgotten. They wake before dawn. They eat simple meals. They rest aching bodies beneath the stars. And then they begin again. For those who work near quarries, life is especially difficult. The desert sun reflects from pale stone, surrounding laborers with blinding brightness. Dust fills the air. Hammer strikes echo against cliffs. Stonecutters spend long hours shaping blocks that will eventually disappear into walls, temples, and tombs. Few of them will ever see the finished structures. Their world is one of immediate tasks: lifting, carving, carrying, enduring. At midday, the heat becomes almost unbearable. People search for shade beneath awnings, trees, or walls. Meals are simple. Bread, onions, beans, dried fish, and beer sustain workers through long days. Water is precious. Clay jars stand in courtyards, keeping their contents cool. Beer is part of daily life. Thick and nourishing, it accompanies meals in homes rich and poor alike. Bakers and brewers begin their work before sunrise, tending fires while the rest of the village still sleeps. Inside kitchens, women knead dough with practiced hands. Flour covers rough wooden surfaces. Smoke rises toward ceilings darkened by years of cooking fires. Children help where they can. Some fetch water from communal wells. Others carry baskets or watch younger siblings. Childhood exists, but responsibilities arrive early. Still, there are moments of rest. In the late afternoon, when shadows begin to stretch across the ground, workers pause. Farmers sit beside irrigation channels and wash dust from their hands. Fishermen mend torn nets while watching the river drift past. Builders lean against unfinished walls and close tired eyes for a few moments. The desert wind changes as evening approaches. Its warmth softens. Birds settle into reeds along the Nile. The endless brightness of the day slowly gives way to gold and deep orange. Families gather once more. Smoke rises above rooftops as meals are prepared. Neighbors exchange stories about crops, weather, and small concerns. Lamps are lit one by one. Inside homes, people speak quietly about the ordinary events that shape their lives. Someone worries about the coming flood. Someone else hopes for a successful harvest. An elderly man remembers years when the river rose higher than expected. Children listen while fighting sleep. The ancient world often appears unchanging from a distance, but those who live within it notice every small difference. A damaged wall. A sick animal. A missing tool. A late shipment of grain. Life depends upon attention. Illness is a constant companion. Fever arrives without warning. Infections spread through crowded homes. Workers injure themselves in fields and quarries. Healers mix herbs and oils, offering comfort where they can. Not every sickness can be cured. Families understand this reality deeply. Loss touches nearly everyone. Yet life continues because it must. The Nile continues to flow. The bread still needs baking. The fields still require care. This acceptance becomes part of Egypt's enduring rhythm. Generations pass beneath the same sun, following customs so old that few question them. Change comes slowly. Entire lifetimes unfold without dramatic transformations. A farmer born under one ruler may die under another while continuing the same work in the same fields. His clothing changes little. His tools remain familiar. His meals taste much the same as those eaten by his ancestors. This stability shapes the character of Egyptian life. Temples rise along the riverbanks, their stone columns casting long shadows across courtyards. Priests perform rituals that have been repeated for centuries. Incense drifts through sacred spaces while prayers echo softly against carved walls. Religion surrounds daily existence. People leave offerings for household gods. Travelers whisper prayers before journeys. Mothers ask for protection over sleeping children. The divine and the ordinary exist side by side. A fisherman pushing his boat into the river before sunrise may pause for a brief prayer. A builder hauling stone beneath the afternoon sun may wear a small charm for protection. Faith offers reassurance within a world that often feels uncertain. Night falls completely. Darkness spreads across villages and cities alike. The desert cools quickly after sunset. Stars emerge in impossible numbers above the silent land. Without modern light, the night sky dominates everything. Families gather beneath its vastness. Some sit on rooftops, escaping the warmth trapped inside their homes. Others finish small tasks by oil lamp before finally resting. The sounds of Egypt change after dark. The noise of markets disappears. The hammering of workshops fades away. Only distant voices, barking dogs, rustling reeds, and the quiet movement of water remain. For tired workers, sleep arrives quickly. Bodies exhausted by labor sink onto woven mats. Hands roughened by years of work finally become still. Tomorrow will bring the same routines. And the day after that. And the year after that. This is how Egypt survives for so long without major changes. Its strength does not come only from kings or monuments. It comes from repetition. From millions of ordinary actions carried out faithfully across generations. The same fields are planted. The same roads are traveled. The same bread is baked in ovens warmed by familiar fires. Even time itself seems to move differently here. The seasons are measured not by distant events but by the river's behavior. People watch the water rise and fall just as their ancestors once did. Children learn to recognize the signs of changing weather. Elders pass down knowledge that has guided families for centuries. In small villages far from great temples, evenings settle gently over the land. A fisherman repairs his boat beneath fading light. A mother folds linen garments worn thin by years of use. An old man sits silently outside his home, listening to insects sing beside the riverbank. The stars continue their slow journey overhead. Somewhere beyond the darkness, caravans move across desert roads. Somewhere else, guards patrol temple walls. Yet most people know little of distant places. Their world is close and familiar. They know the scent of wet earth after the flood. They know the feeling of hot stone beneath bare feet. They know the sound of grain falling into storage jars. And because these things remain constant, life itself feels steady. The children sleeping in mudbrick homes tonight will inherit the routines of their parents. One day they too will wake before dawn. They will carry water, tend crops, repair tools, and seek relief from the afternoon heat. Their own children will do the same. Across centuries, this quiet pattern continues, held together by the Nile, by memory, and by the countless ordinary people whose labor fills each passing day. And now, as midnight deepens over the river, Egypt grows still once more. The lamps burn lower. The desert wind drifts softly through narrow streets. Beyond the sleeping villages, dark fields wait patiently for another sunrise. Before the first birds begin their songs, before the eastern sky loses its darkness, Egypt is already awake in small and quiet ways. A faint glow appears beneath a doorway. Somewhere inside a mud-brick house, someone stirs the ashes of last night's fire. The smell of smoke rises into the cool air and disappears among the stars. For most people, the beginning of the day is not marked by clocks or bells. It arrives through habit. Bodies learn the rhythm of the river and the seasons. Eyes open while the sky is still dark because there is work waiting outside. The streets between the houses remain calm at this hour. Narrow passages wind between walls that have stood for many years. In some places, the mud bricks have cracked under the heat of countless summers. Children have played beside these same walls, and old people have leaned against them while speaking with neighbors. Time leaves its mark slowly here. Inside one home, a family rises together. The youngest child rubs sleep from tired eyes while an older sister folds the mats that covered the floor during the night. Their mother kneels beside a stone grinder. The movement is familiar and steady. Grain becomes flour beneath the heavy stone, just as it did yesterday and the day before. The work is not dramatic. It is not remembered by history. Yet this simple task connects one generation to another. The people of Egypt often live within traditions so old that nobody can say exactly when they began. Customs pass from grandparents to parents and then to children. Meals are prepared in the same way. Fields are planted in the same order. Stories are told beside the same fires. Far away, kings may issue commands from palaces, but in the villages along the Nile, daily life changes very little. As dawn approaches, the darkness softens. The stars fade one by one. Across the riverbanks, fishermen untie their boats from wooden posts driven into the mud. The Nile is quiet at this hour. Gentle waves touch the shore. Reeds sway in the morning breeze. The fishermen work carefully, conserving their strength for the long day ahead. Nets are lifted onto shoulders. Oars are checked for cracks. Small baskets wait to be filled with the day's catch. Many of these men learn their trade from fathers who learned from their own fathers. Their knowledge does not come from books. It lives in their hands and in their memories. They understand the changing currents of the river. They know where fish gather beneath the water and where hidden rocks can damage a boat. The Nile gives life, but it also demands patience. Hours pass quietly upon the water. The sun climbs higher. Heat spreads across the river. Hands grow rough from wet ropes and wooden oars. The work is repetitive, but repetition forms the foundation of Egypt itself. Along the riverbanks, farmers have already begun their own labor. They walk through damp fields carrying hoes and baskets. The earth beneath their feet is dark and fertile, fed by the floods that arrive each year. In the distance, palm trees stand against the brightening sky. Agriculture shapes nearly every part of Egyptian life. Entire villages depend upon successful harvests. A season of abundance means full storage jars and peaceful evenings. A poor season brings worry that lingers in every conversation. The work of farming follows ancient patterns. When the flood waters retreat, fields must be prepared. Seeds are scattered by hand. Irrigation channels are repaired. Animals pull simple plows through the soil. Every task requires time and effort. Workers bend beneath the sun for hours, pausing only briefly to drink water or wipe sweat from their faces. Their clothing is light, but the heat presses against them all the same. Dust clings to skin. Sand gathers inside sandals. The sun in Egypt is both friend and burden. It ripens crops and warms the riverbanks, yet it also exhausts the body. By midday, shadows shrink beneath the feet of laborers. The air becomes heavy and still. In the villages, people seek small patches of shade wherever they can find them. Children sit beneath trees. Elderly men rest against cool walls. Potters retreat into workshops where narrow windows block the brightest light. Inside these workshops, another world exists. The potter's hands move steadily over spinning clay. Bowls, jars, and cups emerge from wet earth gathered along the Nile. The work demands concentration and patience. One careless movement can ruin hours of effort. Rows of finished pottery dry in the warm air. Some vessels will carry grain. Others will store oil or water. Many will eventually crack and return to dust, replaced by new creations shaped by the next generation. Nearby, carpenters work with wood imported from distant lands. Their tools are simple but effective. Chisels scrape against rough surfaces. Fine dust settles onto the floor. Furniture is precious. Even simple stools and beds require many hours of labor. Wealthy households may own beautifully carved pieces, but most families live with only what they truly need. Life encourages practicality. There is little room for waste when survival depends upon careful planning. Grain must be stored against future shortages. Clothing must be repaired rather than discarded. Broken tools are mended whenever possible. This careful way of living remains unchanged for centuries. The children who carry water through village streets grow into adults who repeat the same routines. Their own children watch and learn. Egypt moves forward slowly, almost imperceptibly, held together by countless ordinary habits. As the morning advances, the roads become busier. Merchants guide donkeys loaded with baskets and jars. Travelers arrive from neighboring villages. Dust rises beneath steady footsteps. Markets begin to fill. The sounds are gentle at first. Quiet conversations drift through the air. Sellers arrange their goods beneath cloth canopies. Fresh vegetables rest beside woven baskets. Fish from the Nile lie upon damp mats. Markets are places of trade, but they are also places of connection. News travels along these roads. Families separated by distance exchange greetings. Travelers bring stories of distant temples and unfamiliar towns. Most people, however, remain close to home throughout their lives. The world beyond the Nile Valley feels vast and uncertain. Desert stretches endlessly in every direction. Journeys are difficult. Travel takes time and strength. For many Egyptians, their village is the center of existence. They know every path and every tree. They recognize the voices of neighbors from far away. They understand the moods of the river and the changing colors of the sky. This familiarity creates a sense of permanence. Years pass, rulers change, and monuments rise, but daily life continues according to patterns that seem eternal. Not far from the villages, great building projects reshape the landscape stone by stone. The workers who labor there come from different places along the Nile. Some arrive seasonally, leaving their farms during the flood season when the fields require less attention. Others remain for years. Their homes near the construction sites are modest. Rows of mudbrick dwellings stand beneath the open sky. Narrow sleeping rooms offer shelter from the wind and heat. Shared ovens bake bread for hundreds of workers. Life inside these communities follows strict routines. Before dawn, workers gather for meals. Bread is distributed. Jars of beer are carried through crowded courtyards. Foremen assign tasks for the day ahead. Then the labor begins. Teams pull ropes attached to heavy sledges. Stone blocks scrape across prepared roads. Voices call instructions across the worksite. Sweat darkens linen clothing within hours. The labor is exhausting. Hands blister. Muscles ache. Dust fills the lungs. Yet there is also companionship in shared work. Men speak quietly during moments of rest. They exchange stories about distant villages and growing families. At night, when the day's labor ends, tired workers sit outside their homes beneath the stars. Some mend clothing by lamplight. Others simply close their eyes and listen to the wind moving across the desert. The evenings offer brief comfort. The worst heat fades after sunset. Cool air drifts in from the river. Cooking fires flicker against mud brick walls. Meals remain simple. Bread forms the center of daily life. Bakers begin working long before sunrise, mixing flour with water and shaping dough by hand. The ovens are hot and smoky. Ash settles onto the floor. Alongside bread, families eat vegetables, dates, onions, beans, and fish. Wealthier households may enjoy richer meals, but ordinary people rely upon foods that are filling and dependable. Children often gather close to the cooking fires, watching the familiar routines unfold. They listen as older relatives speak about harvests, repairs, and small concerns that shape everyday existence. Stories pass easily in these moments. Grandparents describe floods from decades earlier. Parents remember years of plentiful grain or seasons of hardship. Children absorb these memories, adding them to the long chain of knowledge that stretches backward through time. Much of Egyptian life depends upon remembering. A farmer remembers where floodwaters rose highest. A fisherman remembers hidden currents. A craftsman remembers the exact pressure needed to shape clay. A healer remembers which plants ease pain or reduce fever. Without written instructions for every task, memory becomes a valuable possession. Even among scribes, whose work centers upon writing, memory remains important. Students spend years learning signs and symbols. They repeat lessons aloud, copying texts until the movements become natural. The life of a scribe appears easier than the life of a farmer, yet it carries its own burdens. Hours spent bent over papyrus leave back stiff and eyes tired. Mistakes bring frustration. Records must be exact. Grain stores, taxes, shipments, and temple inventories depend upon careful attention. In quiet rooms filled with sunlight and dust, scribes preserve the rhythms of Egyptian society. They record harvests and labor assignments. They count livestock and monitor supplies. Their work helps maintain the stability that allows life to continue with so little change. Beyond the villages and workshops, temples rise from the earth. Their walls are cool in the early morning. Priests move through silent halls carrying incense and offerings. Rituals unfold according to ancient traditions that have been repeated for generations. The ceremonies are familiar to everyone. Children grow up watching festivals pass through the streets. Families leave gifts at shrines. Travelers whisper prayers before long journeys. Religion touches every corner of life. It is present in the fields, where farmers ask for good harvests. It is present on the river, where fishermen seek protection. It is present in homes, where small figures of household gods stand near sleeping mats. The boundary between the sacred and the ordinary is difficult to see because the two exist together. When illness arrives, prayers accompany medicine. When a child is born, blessings are spoken. When someone dies, rituals guide the family through grief. Death is never far from daily life. Hard labor weakens the body. Injuries occur in workshops and quarries. Disease spreads through crowded homes during certain seasons. People understand that life is fragile. Yet they continue their work. The fields still require tending. The nets still require repair. The bread still requires baking. This quiet persistence becomes one of the defining qualities of ancient Egypt. There are moments of joy, certainly. Weddings bring music and celebration. Festivals fill streets with color and movement. Children laugh beside the riverbanks. But much of life unfolds through ordinary routines. Morning follows night. Flood follows drought. Harvest follows planting. The same sequence repeats so consistently that it begins to feel timeless. As afternoon slowly fades into evening, the villages change once again. Workers return home carrying tools across tired shoulders. Dust covers their feet. The day's heat lingers in the walls of the houses. Water is poured into clay cups. Simple meals are shared. Conversations drift from one doorway to another. Some people sit quietly outside, watching the sky change color above the desert. Others complete small tasks before darkness arrives. A mother patches worn clothing. A fisherman repairs torn nets. A child gathers firewood. The pace slows. Birds disappear into the reeds. Shadows lengthen across the roads. Smoke rises from cooking fires and hangs in the still air. Night in Egypt arrives gradually. The sky deepens from gold to blue and finally to black. Lamps glow behind small windows. Somewhere in the distance, a donkey calls into the darkness. Families settle into sleep. Children drift off first, exhausted by the day's heat. Adults remain awake a little longer, speaking softly, or simply resting in silence. Above them stretches the same sky that watched over their ancestors. The stars appear unchanged. The river continues its endless journey northward. And within this vast and ancient landscape, ordinary lives continue much as they always have. One generation replaces another with remarkable gentleness. Customs survive because they are woven into every task and every memory. Change comes, but it arrives slowly, softened by the weight of tradition. The people living beside the Nile do not think of themselves as guardians of an ancient way of life. They are simply living as their parents lived, and as their children will live after them. The rhythm feels natural. Tomorrow morning, before sunrise, the grinding stones will begin again. The fishermen will return to the water. The farmers will walk back into the fields. And Egypt, quiet and enduring beneath the stars, will continue its patient journey through time. In the deepest hours of the night, when most homes have fallen silent and the last cooking fires have faded into ash, the Nile continues to move through the darkness. Its water slips quietly past villages and fields, past temples and stone quarries, carrying with it the reflection of countless stars. For the people sleeping along its banks, the river is more than a source of water. It is a companion that shapes every season of life. It decides when fields will be planted and when they will rest. It feeds animals, fills storage jars, and carries merchants from one settlement to another. Entire generations are born and grow old beside its gentle current. Even in sleep, the people of Egypt remain connected to the river. On warm nights, many families climb to the roofs of their homes. The mud-brick walls below still hold the heat of the day, and the open air above offers relief. Parents spread woven mats across the flat rooftops. Children curl beside one another, listening to distant sounds drifting through the darkness. The noises of the night are soft. Somewhere, a dog barks once and then becomes quiet. Wind passes through tall reeds. Water brushes against the shore. Far away, voices rise briefly before fading into silence. An old man lies awake for a few moments longer than the others. His body aches from decades of labor in the fields. His hands are rough and scarred, shaped by years of lifting baskets, repairing irrigation channels, and guiding plows through wet soil. He has lived through many flood seasons. He remembers summers of terrible heat and winters of unusual cold. He remembers the births of his children and the funerals of neighbors. He remembers rulers whose names have already begun to fade from memory. Yet when he thinks back across his long life, it is not kings or monuments that come to his mind first. He remembers the smell of fresh bread before sunrise. He remembers his mother grinding grain while darkness still covered the village. He remembers carrying water jars as a boy and learning how to judge the level of the Nile by looking at the riverbank. These are the memories that remain strongest. For ordinary Egyptians, history is often measured through daily routines rather than great events. The passing years are marked by harvests and floods, by marriages and births, by seasons of plenty and seasons of worry. Before dawn arrives once again, the air cools to its gentlest point. A thin mist rises above the river. Palm trees stand motionless against the fading stars. One by one, people begin to wake. Inside a small house near the edge of a village, a woman opens her eyes and listens for a moment. Beside her, children are still asleep. Beyond the walls, she hears footsteps in the street. Somewhere nearby, another family has already begun their morning. She rises quietly. The floor beneath her feet is cool. Clay jars stand in the corner of the room. Bundles of linen hang from wooden pegs. The house is simple, built by hands that belonged to fathers and grandfathers. Its walls have been repaired many times. Each season leaves its mark. Heavy rains weaken the bricks. Strong winds carry dust into every corner. Cracks appear and are carefully filled. Roofs must be patched. Doorways must be strengthened. A home is never truly finished. The work of maintaining it continues year after year. Outside, the village slowly comes alive. Women carry baskets toward communal ovens. Men prepare tools for the day ahead. Donkeys shift impatiently as ropes are untied. The smell of smoke begins to spread through the cool morning air. For many families, breakfast is simple. Bread baked the day before is shared with onions, dates, or leftover vegetables. Clay cups are filled with water or beer. The meal is modest, but it provides strength for the long hours ahead. Children eat quickly. Even the youngest members of the household often have responsibilities. One child may fetch water from the river. Another may gather firewood or help care for animals. Life teaches practical skills from an early age. There is little separation between childhood and adulthood. A boy watches his father repair a fishing net and gradually learns how to tie the knots himself. A girl observes her mother preparing dough and soon understands each movement without needing instruction. Knowledge flows naturally through the household. No formal lesson announces the beginning of learning. It simply happens through observation and repetition. As the eastern sky brightens, groups of workers leave the village together. Farmers walk toward their fields carrying wooden tools polished smooth by years of use. Their pace is unhurried. They know that the work ahead will consume the entire day. The fields stretch outward in shades of green and brown. Narrow channels guide water across the land. Birds search for insects among the crops. For a short time, before the sun climbs too high, the morning feels peaceful. The coolness does not last. Soon, the heat begins its slow return. Sunlight spreads across the earth, warming stone walls and dusty roads. Shadows shorten. The farmers continue their labor. One man clears weeds from the edge of an irrigation ditch. Another scatters seed into freshly turned soil. Nearby, two brothers repair a broken section of embankment damaged by recent flooding. The work requires constant attention. Water must flow in the correct direction. Crops must be protected from animals. Tools must be maintained. There are no machines to ease the burden. Everything depends on human effort. Hour after hour, people bend, lift, carry, and build. Their bodies adapt to the rhythm of labor. Muscles strengthen. Skin darkens beneath the sun. Hands become calloused. Exhaustion is not unusual. It is woven into daily life. By midday, many workers feel the heaviness settling into their limbs. Sweat runs down their backs. Dust clings to their clothing. They rest briefly beneath whatever shade they can find. Perhaps beneath a palm tree. Perhaps beside a stone wall. Perhaps near the river, where a faint breeze moves across the water. The moments of rest are quiet. Conversations drift toward ordinary concerns. Someone speaks about a damaged roof. Someone else worries about a sick goat. Another mentions that his daughter will soon be married. Life moves forward through these small events. Large changes rarely arrive all at once. Egypt remains stable because most people continue doing what they have always done. Skills are preserved. Customs endure. Villages grow slowly. Far from the fields, life unfolds differently within the towns and cities. The streets there are busier, filled with merchants, scribes, laborers, and craftsmen. Buildings stand close together. Voices echo between stone walls. Yet even in these crowded places, routine governs daily existence. A young apprentice enters a workshop before sunrise. He sweeps the floor and arranges tools while his master prepares for the day's labor. The boy has spent years learning the craft, repeating simple tasks again and again. Perhaps he works with wood. Perhaps with stone. Perhaps with copper. Whatever his trade, patience is essential. Craftsmanship develops slowly. Mistakes are expected. Perfection requires time. Inside the workshop, the air is warm and heavy with dust. Sunlight slips through narrow openings and falls across unfinished objects. The master craftsman says little. He demonstrates a movement once, and the apprentice repeats it. Days become months. Months become years. Eventually, the apprentice's hands begin to understand what words cannot easily explain. Throughout Egypt, thousands of such workshops exist. Potters shape clay beside spinning wheels. Weavers sit before looms, guiding thread through careful patterns. Jewelers polish stones beneath the dim light of oil lamps. The products of their labor travel far beyond the places where they were made. A bowl crafted in one village may eventually appear in another hundreds of miles away. A length of linen woven beside the Nile may be carried into distant deserts. Trade links communities together. Boats move steadily along the river, their sails catching the wind. Merchants transport grain, pottery, papyrus, and tools from one settlement to the next. Travel is slow. Journeys require planning and endurance. Most people rarely venture far from home, but merchants spend much of their lives moving between different places. They know the river's moods. They know where to find shelter during storms. They know which markets are busiest after harvest season. The Nile serves as Egypt's great road. Without it, communication would be difficult and uncertain. Boats of every size drift upon its surface. Small fishing vessels share the water with larger cargo boats. Their sails appear white against the brilliant sky. Along the riverbanks, fishermen continue their work. Some cast nets into shallow waters. Others wait patiently with simple lines. The catch varies from day to day. Fishing demands endurance. Hours pass with little movement. The sun reflects off the water. Hands grow stiff from gripping wet ropes. Yet there is a certain peace in this labor. The fisherman learns to observe small details, the movement of birds overhead, the changing direction of the wind, the patterns that ripple across the river's surface. He becomes part of the landscape itself. Nearby, children splash in the shallows while their mothers wash clothing against smooth stones. The sound of laughter rises briefly above the water. For a moment, the burdens of labor seem distant. But work always returns. Clothing must be dried. Fish must be cleaned. Tools must be repaired. The rhythm continues. As afternoon settles over the land, the heat becomes almost unbearable. Streets empty. Animals search for shade. Even the birds grow quiet. Inside homes, the air feels thick. Families retreat into the coolest rooms they can find. Some rest. Others continue working despite their exhaustion. Women spin thread, mend clothing, or prepare food for the evening meal. Elderly relatives watch over sleeping children. Daily life leaves little room for idleness. Tasks wait patiently to be completed. Grain must be stored safely away from insects and moisture. Water jars must be filled. Firewood must be collected before nightfall. Many of these responsibilities fall upon women, whose labor sustains the household from sunrise until long after sunset. Their work is constant. They grind grain until their shoulders ache. They bake bread beside hot ovens. They carry water in heavy jars. They care for children and elderly family members. History often speaks of rulers and priests, but the quiet strength of ordinary women supports much of Egyptian life. In the evenings, after the worst heat has faded, villages begin to stir once more. Workers return from the fields. The sound of footsteps fills the roads. Dust rises into the golden light. Families gather outside their homes. Meals are shared. Stories are exchanged. The atmosphere changes as the sun descends. Long shadows stretch across the earth. The sky glows orange above distant desert hills. Birds circle overhead before disappearing into the reeds. For many people, this is the most peaceful moment of the day. The labor is finished, at least for now. Children chase one another through narrow streets. Neighbors sit together and speak quietly. An old woman repairs a basket while listening to distant voices. A fisherman checks his nets one final time. A young scribe practices writing symbols in the fading light. Across Egypt, countless small scenes unfold at once. None of them will be recorded on temple walls. No monument will preserve the name of the baker rising before dawn or the farmer repairing an irrigation channel. Yet these ordinary lives are the foundation upon which everything else rests. The pyramids, temples, and palaces could not exist without the endless work of people whose stories remain untold. And perhaps that is one reason Egypt changes so slowly. The people who sustain it value continuity. They trust familiar routines. They pass knowledge carefully from one generation to the next. A father teaches his son how to plant according to the flood. A mother teaches her daughter how to shape bread. A craftsman teaches his apprentice how to hold a tool. Small lessons become traditions. Traditions become centuries. Night approaches once more. The first stars appear above the river. Lamps are lit inside homes. Cooking fires flicker gently in open courtyards. The day's heat begins to loosen its grip on the land. Families prepare for sleep. Children yawn beside the firelight. Tired workers stretch aching backs. Doors close softly against the night wind. Above the villages, the sky grows darker. The Nile continues its silent journey beneath the stars, carrying boats, memories, and the quiet rhythms of a civilization that seems almost untouched by time. And as another day fades into darkness, Egypt settles once more into its ancient and familiar silence. Long after the lamps have gone dark and the villages have become quiet, there are still a few people awake beneath the Egyptian sky. A guard walks slowly along the outer wall of a temple, his sandals scraping softly against stone worn smooth by countless footsteps. Somewhere on the river, a fisherman adjusts the rope securing his small boat against the current. In a distant house, a mother comforts a restless child who cannot yet return to sleep. For most of the land, however, the night belongs to silence. The stars hang above the Nile in numbers that seem impossible to count. Their reflections tremble in the dark water, broken only by the gentle movement of reeds along the shore. The desert beyond the river valley has become cold now. The heat that filled the earth during the day has slipped away into the open sky. Egypt has always been a place of contrasts. The coolness before dawn gives way to fierce afternoons. The fertile banks of the Nile stand beside endless stretches of sand and rock. Great temples rise only a short distance from humble homes made of mud brick and straw. Rich officials and poor laborers live within the same kingdom, yet their daily lives are separated by very different concerns. Still, beneath those differences, there are routines that touch nearly everyone. Even the wealthiest families wake to the sound of work beginning outside their walls. Even the poorest households gather around bread ovens and water jars. The rhythm of the river shapes all lives, whether they unfold inside a palace or in a narrow village street. As the hours pass and the eastern horizon slowly begins to pale, the first workers of the day emerge once more. They step into streets still covered in shadow. Many carry baskets or tools balanced across their shoulders. Others lead donkeys loaded with sacks of grain or bundles of reeds. The smell of damp earth rises from the riverbanks. Morning is often the most pleasant time in Egypt. The air is cool enough to breathe deeply. A soft wind moves across the fields. Birds gather among the papyrus plants, their calls echoing over the water. For a short while, the day feels gentle. A farmer pauses at the edge of his field and looks toward the Nile. He has stood in this same place thousands of times before. The view changes very little. The same river flows past the same trees. The same distant hills wait beyond the fields. His father once worked this land. His grandfather worked it before him. The boundaries of the fields have shifted slightly over the years as flood waters have altered the landscape, but the work itself remains familiar. He kneels and presses his hand into the soil. The earth is dark and cool. It carries the gift of the river, left behind after the annual floods retreat. Without this rich soil, there would be no harvest and no villages. Without the Nile, there would be only desert. This simple truth shapes nearly every decision in Egyptian life. The calendar follows the river. The seasons follow the river. Entire communities rise and fall according to its behavior. Children understand this from an early age. Before they can read or write, they know that the water will rise and fall each year. They learn which months bring planting and which bring harvest. They watch adults measure the river's level and listen to conversations about whether the flood has been generous or disappointing. For them, these patterns feel eternal. The adults around them speak of past years with careful detail. They remember a flood that came too early. They remember another that failed to reach the highest fields. They remember seasons when grain stores overflowed and seasons when families worried quietly about the months ahead. Memory is one of Egypt's most valuable possessions. Knowledge is carried in stories, habits, and repeated actions. It lives in the hands of craftsmen and in the footsteps of farmers crossing familiar roads. A fisherman does not need to study a map to find his way along the river. He knows the bends of the Nile as well as he knows his own home. He recognizes the places where fish gather and the stretches of water that become dangerous during certain seasons. This knowledge has been passed to him through years of observation. As the sun climbs higher, boats begin to appear across the river. Some are small and narrow, carrying fishermen and their nets. Others are larger vessels loaded with grain, pottery, or stone. Their sails catch the morning breeze and pull them slowly northward. The river is Egypt's great connection. Villages separated by long distances remain linked by the steady movement of boats. Merchants carry goods from one city to another. Officials travel to inspect distant lands. Priests journey between temples. Even messages move along the Nile. Without it, the kingdom would feel far larger and far more isolated. Along the docks of a busy town, workers unload heavy baskets from arriving boats. Their movements are practiced and efficient. One man lifts a sack of grain onto his shoulder while another records the shipment on a piece of papyrus. Nearby, merchants discuss prices in low voices. Markets are beginning to fill. Fresh fish glisten in woven baskets. Pottery catches the sunlight. Cloth merchants carefully unfold lengths of linen. Farmers arrive carrying vegetables harvested only hours earlier. The market is one of the few places where people from many different walks of life regularly meet. A laborer from the quarries may stand beside a temple servant. A fisherman may exchange words with a scribe. Children weave through the crowd while older men sit beneath shaded awnings and watch the morning unfold. The sounds are constant but not hurried. There is no rush in the ancient world. Journeys take time. Goods travel slowly. News spreads from mouth to mouth. People learn patience because they have little choice. A broken tool cannot always be replaced immediately. A distant relative may take weeks to arrive. Repairs to a damaged roof might require waiting for materials from another village. Life unfolds at the pace of human hands. In the workshops that line the streets, craftsmen begin their day's labor. A potter kneads wet clay, pressing it firmly with strong fingers. Beside him, rows of unfinished jars wait to dry in the sun. The work demands care and attention. Too much pressure can ruin a vessel. Too little can leave it weak. The potter has repeated these motions for years. His body knows the work so well that his thoughts can wander while his hands continue shaping the clay. Nearby, a weaver sits before a loom. Thread passes back and forth in steady rhythm. The sound is soft but constant. Linen takes shape slowly, one line at a time. The room is warm already, though the day has only begun. Dust floats through shafts of sunlight that enter through narrow openings in the wall. The work will continue for hours. Across Egypt, thousands of workshops hum with quiet activity. Carpenters smooth rough wood with bronze tools. Stonecutters chip carefully at limestone blocks. Jewelers polish beads no larger than a fingernail. Most of these workers will spend their entire lives practicing the same craft. There is comfort in such repetition. A young apprentice enters a workshop knowing what tomorrow will bring. The tasks may be difficult, but they are familiar. Skills deepen slowly over years of practice. The apprentice watches the older craftsmen closely. He notices how they hold their tools and how they judge the quality of their materials. He learns when to speak and when to remain silent. His education does not happen in a classroom. It unfolds through long days of observation. Mistakes are corrected patiently. Lessons are repeated until they become habits. Eventually, the apprentice will teach someone else, and the cycle will continue. This way of learning helps explain why so much remains unchanged across generations. People trust what has worked before. A farmer plants the way his father planted because his father's methods produced food. A builder follows the techniques of older craftsmen because those techniques have stood the test of time. Innovation exists, but it arrives slowly. Most Egyptians value reliability over novelty. By midday, the heat settles heavily over the land. The bright morning has disappeared beneath a blazing sun. Stone walls radiate warmth. The roads shimmer in the distance. Workers pause whenever possible. Some retreat into shaded courtyards. Others sit beneath trees near the river. Clay cups filled with water pass from hand to hand. Conversation slows in the heat. People speak quietly, conserving energy. An elderly woman sits in the doorway of her home, watching children play in the narrow street. She remembers when she was their age, running through these same passages decades earlier. Much has changed within her own family. Children have grown and married. Friends have disappeared. New neighbors have arrived. Yet the village itself remains remarkably familiar. The houses still crowd together around the same open spaces. The ovens still send smoke into the sky each morning. The same roads lead to the fields. For people living in ancient Egypt, change often comes so slowly that it is difficult to notice. A new temple may rise over many years. A canal may be widened. A ruler may issue new commands. But the rhythm of ordinary life continues almost untouched. This stability offers comfort. People know what tomorrow will require of them. They know where they belong within the community. Expectations are clear. Children grow up understanding the responsibilities waiting for them. Young boys accompany older relatives into fields and workshops. Young girls help prepare meals and care for younger siblings. The lessons begin early because survival depends upon them. Life is physically demanding. Water jars are heavy. Grain sacks weigh heavily on tired shoulders. Hours of labor beneath the sun leave muscles sore and joints stiff. By evening, many workers are exhausted. Their feet ache from standing. Their backs ache from lifting. Still, there is satisfaction in completed tasks. A repaired fishing net. A finished basket. A field successfully irrigated. A fresh loaf of bread removed from the oven. These small accomplishments shape the emotional life of ordinary Egyptians far more than distant political events. As the afternoon slowly fades, the harsh brightness begins to soften. The shadows lengthen once again. The air cools. People emerge from shaded spaces and resume the work left unfinished during the hottest hours of the day. Farmers gather tools. Merchants count their remaining goods. Children return from the river carrying water jars nearly as large as themselves. And across the fields, the sound of voices drifts gently toward the evening sky. The Nile reflects the colors of sunset. Gold becomes orange. Orange deepens into red. The river that looked silver beneath the moon and blue beneath the morning sky now glows with the fading light of day. Families begin preparing the evening meal. Inside homes, grinding stones turn once more. Bread bakes in clay ovens. Vegetables simmer in simple pots. The smell of smoke and cooking spreads through the village. People gather in courtyards and on rooftops. For a little while, the burdens of labor are set aside. Neighbors exchange stories. Parents listen to their children. Older people speak of seasons long past. The conversations are rarely grand. They revolve around crops, weather, repairs, marriages, illnesses, and the small concerns that shape daily existence. Yet these moments bind communities together. The strength of Egypt does not rest only in temples or palaces. It rests in these ordinary evenings. It rests in shared meals and familiar faces. It rests in the quiet certainty that tomorrow will begin much like today. And as darkness slowly returns to the land, the lamps are lit once again, casting soft circles of light against ancient walls while the Nile continues its endless journey through the sleeping world. As evening settles over the villages and the last warmth of the sun slips away from the mud-brick walls, Egypt enters one of its gentlest hours. The labor of the day has ended, though small tasks still remain. A woman shakes dust from a woven mat before laying it across the floor. A father untangles a length of rope that will be needed again at sunrise. Children, their energy finally fading, lean against their mothers and watch the flames of the cooking fire dance in the darkness. Above them, the stars slowly emerge. They appear first as a few bright points above the western horizon, then as hundreds, and finally as thousands scattered across the sky. For the people of Egypt, these stars are familiar companions. Night after night, they return to the same places, moving across the heavens with a patience that mirrors the rhythm of life along the Nile. Many Egyptians spend more time looking at the sky than later generations ever would. The stars help guide travelers. Priests observe them carefully from temple rooftops. Farmers notice the changing positions of certain lights in the heavens and connect them to the turning of the seasons. The night sky is not empty to them. It is filled with stories, signs, and quiet certainty. The river below reflects that same sky, breaking the stars into shimmering pieces. Boats tied to wooden posts rise and fall with the current. Somewhere in the darkness, a fisherman checks his knots one final time before sleep. His hands move automatically. Years of labor have taught him exactly how tight the ropes must be and where the wood tends to weaken. He no longer thinks about such things. His body remembers for him. This kind of memory exists everywhere in Egypt. A baker knows the exact feeling of properly mixed dough. A potter senses when clay contains too much water. A farmer recognizes healthy soil simply by touching it. Much of life depends not on written instructions but on repeated experience. Day after day, season after season, people perform the same actions until they become part of who they are. Inside one house near the riverbank, an elderly woman sits beside a small lamp. The light flickers against the walls, revealing shelves filled with clay jars and baskets woven from reeds. Her grandchildren sleep nearby, curled beneath linen cloths. She has lived long enough to see many flood seasons come and go. When she was a child, this same room belonged to her parents. The roof has been repaired several times. New bricks have replaced old ones. Yet the house remains standing, much as it always has. This is true of much of Egypt. Buildings age slowly. Villages grow little by little. Families expand, divide, and rebuild. Change happens, but it often unfolds so gradually that people hardly notice it. The children sleeping tonight will inherit more than their family's belongings. They will inherit habits, expectations, and responsibilities. One day, the boys will rise before dawn and walk toward the fields or workshops. The girls will learn the countless tasks that keep a household alive. They will carry water jars, prepare food, repair clothing, and care for younger children. These lessons begin almost as soon as a child can walk. There is no clear moment when learning starts. It happens naturally. A small boy watches his older brother mend a fishing net. At first, he only observes. Later, he is allowed to hold the rope. Eventually, he learns how to tie the knots himself. A young girl sits beside her mother as grain is ground into flour. She listens to conversations, carries small baskets, and gradually understands how each part of the household functions. Knowledge passes quietly from one generation to the next. No one speaks of preserving ancient traditions. They simply live as they always have. As the night deepens, the villages grow quieter. The laughter of children fades. The final conversations come to an end. Doors close softly against the cool desert air. Only a few sounds remain. The distant cry of a bird. The whisper of wind through palm leaves. The slow movement of water against the riverbank. The silence of Egypt is never complete. There is always something stirring in the darkness. Yet the stillness of the night offers relief after the heat and effort of the day. For laborers who spend their lives carrying stone, digging canals, or harvesting crops, sleep is not a luxury. It is necessary. Their bodies depend upon it. The muscles in their arms and backs recover while they rest. Hands hardened by years of work finally become still. Breathing slows. Tomorrow will demand everything from them once again. Long before sunrise, life will begin to return. The first signs are subtle. A donkey shifts in its shelter. A bird calls from the reeds. Somewhere, a woman wakes and adds fresh fuel to a dying fire. Darkness still covers the land, but the routines of Egypt are already beginning. In one village, several men gather near the river with empty baskets. They speak quietly while waiting for enough light to begin their journey. Their destination lies several miles away, where workers are expanding an irrigation canal. Such projects are never truly finished. The Nile gives life, but its waters must be guided and controlled. Channels collapse and must be rebuilt. Embankments wear away. New fields require new pathways for water. Entire communities depend upon this constant maintenance. The work is difficult. Laborers stand ankle-deep in mud, lifting earth beneath the growing heat of the sun. Sweat covers their skin long before midday arrives. Their shoulders ache beneath the weight of baskets filled with soil. Yet they continue because they understand the importance of their labor. Without these canals, crops would fail. Without crops, villages would suffer. This understanding connects individual effort to the survival of the entire community. Nearby, farmers begin their own day. Oxen move slowly across the fields, pulling wooden plows through damp earth. Men walk behind them, guiding the blades and watching the soil turn. The work requires patience. There are no quick harvests. Seeds planted today will take months to mature. The farmer must trust the river, the weather, and the knowledge passed down from earlier generations. Many aspects of Egyptian life encourage this kind of patience. Buildings take years to construct. Children take years to become skilled workers. Fields take months to produce food. The pace of life is shaped by natural cycles that cannot be hurried. Perhaps this is one reason Egypt changes so slowly across the centuries. People learn to think in seasons rather than moments. They measure time through harvests and floods, through the growth of children and the aging of parents. The passing of rulers matters, but it rarely alters the rhythm of ordinary life. A new king may sit upon the throne, yet the fisherman still wakes before dawn. The baker still prepares bread. The farmer still studies the river. For most Egyptians, stability is more important than novelty. The familiar routines of daily life offer reassurance in a world filled with uncertainty. Illness can arrive without warning. Floods can disappoint. Animals can die. The heat can exhaust even the strongest workers. Against these hardships, routine becomes a source of comfort. People know what must be done each day. They know where to find help. They know who they are. As morning spreads across the land, the cities awaken as well. Within their walls, scribes prepare ink and papyrus. Temple servants sweep courtyards and arrange offerings. Merchants open storerooms and count their goods. The streets become crowded. Donkeys carry baskets of vegetables toward the market. Potters transport freshly fired vessels. Children run errands for their families. The air fills with familiar sounds. Voices echo between buildings. Wooden wheels creak. Sandals strike the packed earth. Yet even in the busiest districts, there is little urgency. Life moves steadily rather than quickly. Travel takes time. Messages take time. Construction takes time. People expect delays because delays are simply part of existence. A shipment arriving several days late is inconvenient, but not surprising. A building project extending into another season causes frustration, yet no one expects otherwise. Patience is woven into everyday life. Near the center of one town, a group of scribes sits beneath a shaded roof. Their work is quieter than that of the laborers outside, but it requires concentration. Reed pens scratch against papyrus. Inventories are checked. Records are copied. The scribes track the movement of grain, tools, livestock, and workers. They preserve agreements and document deliveries. For generations, this careful record-keeping helps maintain order across the kingdom. Young students watch their teachers closely. Learning to write is difficult. Symbols must be memorized. Hands must become steady. Mistakes must be corrected. Many students grow frustrated. Their fingers ache. Their attention drifts toward the noise outside. But the lessons continue. Hour after hour, day after day. Like every other skill in Egypt, writing is mastered through repetition. Outside the administrative buildings, ordinary life continues. Women carry baskets balanced upon their heads. Craftsmen sit in doorways repairing tools. Children chase one another through dusty streets. The smells of the city shift throughout the day. In the morning, fresh bread and smoke drift from the ovens. By midday, the scent of hot stone and animals fills the air. In the evening, cooking fires return, bringing with them the comforting smell of meals being prepared. For the people living here, these scents become part of memory. Years later, someone may recall childhood not through great events but through the smell of bread before sunrise or the sound of sandals on stone floors. Memory is built from ordinary moments. A quiet conversation on a rooftop. The taste of cool water after hours of labor. The sight of the Nile glowing beneath the evening sky. These experiences connect generations to one another. Parents share them with children, who later share them with their own families. And so the habits of Egypt endure. They survive not because anyone forces them to survive, but because they are woven into the daily lives of millions of ordinary people. As afternoon begins to fade once more, workers leave the fields and workshops. The heat slowly weakens. Shadows stretch across roads worn smooth by countless footsteps. The river reflects the changing colors of the sky. Boats drift homeward. Voices soften. Across villages and cities, evening returns once again to the land that has changed so little for so long. And beneath the growing darkness, Egypt settles back into its endless rhythm, carried forward by familiar routines and the quiet determination of those who wake each morning beside the Nile. The night passes gently over Egypt, and the river continues its slow movement beneath the stars. The villages rest, but the land itself never feels completely still. Even in darkness, there are quiet signs of life everywhere. A small flame burns inside a baker's oven before the first light appears. A boatman wakes beside his sleeping vessel and checks the ropes holding it to the shore. A shepherd rises to look after animals that have been resting through the night. The ancient world begins each day softly. There is no sudden change between night and morning. Instead, one slowly becomes the other. Darkness fades. The first birds begin calling. The eastern sky becomes pale. The familiar sounds of work return. For thousands of years, this same pattern repeats along the Nile. The people living beside the river understand their place within this rhythm. They are not trying to escape the cycles of nature. They live within them. The river rises. The river falls. Seeds are planted. Crops grow. Harvest arrives. The fields rest. Then the cycle begins again. This way of life creates a deep connection between people and their surroundings. A farmer does not simply work the land. He knows it. He notices changes in the soil. He watches the color of the water. He understands the moods of the seasons. A fisherman does not simply travel on the Nile. He reads it. He observes the currents, the winds, and the behavior of birds above the water. A builder does not simply place stones. He learns the weight of materials, the strength of walls, and the methods used by those who worked before him. Every person develops a relationship with their work. And because most people spend their entire lives practicing the same skills, those skills become deeply refined. A lifetime may seem short, but when knowledge passes through many lifetimes, it becomes something much larger. A farmer's hands carry lessons from generations before him. A craftsman's tools carry memories of previous owners. A family home carries repairs made by many different hands. Egypt itself becomes a place built from accumulated experience. As morning grows brighter, a group of workers walks along a dusty road toward a construction area near the edge of the desert. Their journey begins before the heat becomes unbearable. They carry simple meals wrapped in cloth. They carry tools made from wood, stone, and copper. Some walk silently. Others speak quietly about their families and the tasks waiting for them. The road beneath their feet is familiar. They have walked it many times. The desert surrounds them, vast and quiet. Sand stretches toward the horizon. The air is dry. The distant cliffs glow beneath the rising sun. To someone unfamiliar with this landscape, the desert may appear empty. But the people of Egypt see it differently. They know where water can be found. They know which paths lead safely across the land. They know where stone can be cut and where valuable materials lie hidden. The desert is not only a place of hardship. It is also a place of resources. For builders and craftsmen, it provides the stone that shapes temples and monuments. For travelers, it provides routes connecting distant communities. Still, the desert demands respect. The heat can weaken even strong workers. The distance between water sources can be dangerous. Travel requires planning and preparation. This awareness shapes Egyptian life. People understand the importance of balance. Too much sun can harm. Too little water can destroy. Too much flood can damage. Too little flood can bring hunger. The world around them requires careful attention. At the construction site, the morning begins with organization. Workers gather where they have been assigned. Some prepare tools. Others move materials. Foremen inspect progress and give instructions. The work is repetitive. A stone block is measured. A surface is smoothed. A rope is pulled. A path is cleared. The same actions happen again and again. There is a quiet discipline in this kind of labor. Large structures do not rise because of one moment of effort. They are created through thousands of ordinary actions repeated over many years. A worker may spend an entire day completing a small part of a much larger task. He may never see the finished result. He may never know how future generations will look upon what he helped create. But at the end of the day, he knows the work was completed. A stone was moved. A wall became stronger. A task was finished. For him, that is enough. During breaks, workers gather beneath simple shelters made from reeds and cloth. They drink water, share bread, and rest their tired bodies. The conversations are ordinary. Someone talks about a child learning to walk. Someone mentions a damaged roof at home. Someone wonders whether the next flood will be generous. These small concerns remain the same across centuries. People everywhere worry about family, health, work, and the future. Even in ancient Egypt, daily life is filled with familiar human experiences. Happiness comes from small moments. A successful harvest. A cool breeze after a hot day. A meal shared with family. A child's laughter beside the river. Comfort comes from familiarity. A known path. A familiar face. A home built by generations. As evening approaches, workers return from the construction site. Their clothing is covered in dust. Their hands are tired. The journey home feels longer after a full day of labor. Yet there is relief in knowing that the work is finished for now. The village welcomes them with familiar sounds. Cooking fires burn. Children run toward returning family members. Neighbors exchange greetings. The same streets that were quiet in the morning now glow beneath the warm light of sunset. Inside homes, preparations for the evening meal begin. Food is simple but carefully prepared. Grain is crushed. Dough is shaped. Vegetables are cleaned. Fish is cooked over fire. The kitchen becomes a place of movement and warmth. Smoke rises toward the ceiling. The scent of bread fills the room. A family gathers around a low table. There are no grand decorations. No elaborate displays. Only familiar food and familiar people. For many Egyptians, these moments define life. Not the monuments. Not the names of rulers. Not distant events. The quiet hours spent with family after a long day. The feeling of resting beside a loved one. The sound of conversation beneath the night sky. The ancient Egyptian home is not simply a place for sleeping. It is the center of everyday existence. Within its walls, children learn traditions. Food is prepared. Stories are shared. Tools are repaired. Memories are created. The house itself becomes part of the family's history. A wall repaired by a father. A doorway built by a grandfather. A storage jar passed down from an older generation. Objects carry meaning because they are connected to people. Nothing is easily replaced. A broken bowl may be repaired. A torn garment may be stitched. A damaged tool may be reshaped. The idea of throwing things away is uncommon because everything represents effort. Someone gathered the material. Someone shaped it. Someone carried it. Someone spent time creating it. Respect for labor exists everywhere. A farmer respects the grain because he knows how many hours were needed to grow it. A craftsman respects his tools because they are companions in his work. A family respects their home because many hands helped create it. This careful relationship with possessions is part of why daily life remains stable for so long. People depend upon what they already have. They maintain. They repair. They preserve. As night deepens, the village becomes quieter. The youngest children fall asleep first. Their breathing becomes slow and peaceful. Parents continue speaking softly beside fading fires. They discuss tomorrow's tasks. They decide who will visit the market. They remember what must be repaired. The concerns of tomorrow are already waiting. But for a brief moment, everyone rests. Outside, the Nile continues flowing. The moon creates a silver path across the water. Palm trees move gently in the breeze. The desert beyond the fields remains silent. This quiet landscape has watched generations come and go. It watched farmers plant their first seeds. It watched children become elders. It watched workers carry stone across the sand. It watched families celebrate and mourn. The landscape remembers, even when people do not. For those living in Egypt, there is comfort in knowing that they belong to something older than themselves. Their lives are part of a pattern that began long before they were born. And they trust that the pattern will continue after they are gone. The river will still rise. The fields will still grow. The sun will still cross the sky. Their children will still wake beside the Nile. This feeling of continuity shapes the Egyptian understanding of life. The world is not constantly changing. It is returning. Each year resembles the one before. Each generation resembles the last. Each morning carries familiar sounds. In this way, centuries can pass while ordinary life remains remarkably similar. A person born hundreds of years apart may recognize the same experiences. The same early morning air. The same taste of bread. The same cool river water. The same exhaustion after a day beneath the sun. The same peaceful feeling when night finally arrives. And as another ancient evening settles over Egypt, the villages become still once more. The lamps grow dim. The cooking fires turn to glowing embers. The workers rest their tired bodies. The river continues its quiet journey through the darkness. And beneath the endless sky, another generation sleeps, surrounded by the routines that have carried their people through time. The first light of morning slowly reaches the edges of Egypt, touching the tops of palm trees and the quiet roofs of mud brick homes. The darkness that covered the villages begins to disappear, not suddenly, but gently. The night gives way to another day, just as it has done countless times before. Along the Nile, people wake to familiar sounds. The soft movement of water. The calls of birds near the reeds. The footsteps of workers beginning their morning journeys. The sound of grain being prepared. The crackling of small cooking fires. For the people of ancient Egypt, these sounds are not interruptions to sleep. They are the natural beginning of life itself. Every morning carries the same promise. There will be work to complete. There will be food to prepare. There will be responsibilities to fulfill. And there will be small moments of comfort hidden within the ordinary hours. A young farmer walks toward his fields carrying a wooden tool over his shoulder. He has walked this path since childhood. As a boy, he followed his father along the same road, watching him inspect the crops and repair the channels that carried water across the land. At that time, the fields seemed enormous. The work seemed endless. Now, many years later, he understands the rhythm of the land. He knows which plants need attention. He knows when the soil is too dry. He knows the signs that suggest the river will bring a good flood. This knowledge has become part of him. He does not think about it as a skill. It is simply the way he lives. Across Egypt, countless people carry this kind of inherited knowledge. Their lives are connected to those who came before them, not through written records alone, but through actions repeated every day. A fisherman teaches a child where to place a net. A baker teaches a child how to judge the heat of an oven. A builder teaches a child how to shape stone. A farmer teaches a child how to listen to the land. The lessons are quiet. They happen while working. They happen while walking. They happen while sitting together at the end of a long day. Ancient Egypt is built upon this slow passing of knowledge. As the morning continues, the villages become busy. Women move through courtyards carrying baskets filled with grain. The sound of grinding stones rises from many homes. The movement is steady and familiar. Grinding grain is one of the most common tasks in Egyptian households. It requires patience. The stone moves back and forth. The grain becomes finer. The flour collects. Then the process begins again. Hours of work may be spent preparing enough flour for the family. The task is physically demanding. Shoulders become tired. Hands become rough. Yet this labor is essential. Without it, there is no bread. And without bread, daily life cannot continue. Bread is more than food in Egypt. It is part of every household. It appears at simple meals and important gatherings. It feeds farmers, craftsmen, officials, and children. A loaf of bread represents the connection between the field, the worker, and the family table. The farmer grows the grain. The worker harvests it. The baker transforms it. The family shares it. A single piece of bread carries the effort of many people. Nearby, children carry small responsibilities of their own. They walk carefully through narrow streets carrying water jars. The jars are heavy, and the journey requires balance. Water collected from the river must be brought home without spilling too much. The children learn patience through these tasks. They learn awareness. They learn that even small actions matter. A dropped jar means another journey. A forgotten task means extra work later. Life teaches through experience. There is little separation between learning and living. As the sun rises higher, the streets fill with movement. Merchants arrange their goods. Animals move through crowded pathways. Workers travel toward fields, workshops, and construction areas. The smell of bread mixes with the smell of dust and river water. The sounds of voices fill the air. Yet beneath the activity, there remains a feeling of order. Everyone understands their place. Everyone has a role. This does not mean life is always easy. Many people face hardship. A poor harvest can bring fear. A serious illness can change a family's future. An injury can prevent someone from working. There are no simple solutions for many problems. But communities provide support. Neighbors share resources when possible. Families care for those who cannot work. Older generations guide younger ones. Survival depends not only on individual effort but also on cooperation. The village is a living network of relationships. A farmer does not exist separately from the baker. The fisherman does not exist separately from the merchant. The craftsman does not exist separately from the farmer. Every person contributes something. The stability of Egypt comes from these connections. Far away from the villages, the great cities operate according to similar principles. Inside administrative buildings, officials organize supplies and records. Inside temples, priests perform ancient ceremonies. Inside workshops, craftsmen continue their work. Inside homes, families follow their daily routines. Different worlds exist side by side. A palace may contain painted walls, beautiful furniture, and valuable objects. A worker's home may contain only simple mats, clay jars, and basic tools. Yet both households depend upon many of the same things: food, water, shelter, family, security. The needs of human life remain familiar. In the quieter areas of the kingdom, many people live as farmers. Their connection to agriculture is so strong that the changing seasons determine the structure of their year. When the Nile floods, some fields disappear beneath water. When the waters retreat, planting begins. When crops mature, harvesting fills the days with activity. When harvest ends, people repair tools, maintain buildings, and prepare for the next cycle. The year moves in circles. There is comfort in knowing what comes next. Modern ideas of constant change do not belong to this world. Here, repetition is not seen as boring. It is necessary. It is dependable. A repeated action performed well becomes a tradition. A tradition repeated across generations becomes a way of life. This is why Egyptian society can remain recognizable for such a long period of time. The river provides stability. The climate provides patterns. The people preserve knowledge. Together, these create a civilization that feels deeply rooted. As afternoon approaches, the heat becomes stronger. The fields shimmer beneath the sun. The stones of buildings become warm. The air feels heavy. Many workers slow their movements. Some sit beneath shade. Some pour water over their hands and faces. Some simply close their eyes for a few moments. Rest is necessary. Even the strongest workers have limits. A man who spends years lifting heavy stones understands the importance of allowing his body to recover. A farmer knows that tired animals must be given time to rest. A craftsman knows that rushed work creates mistakes. Patience applies not only to life but also to labor. The afternoon passes slowly. The shadows gradually begin to lengthen. The strongest heat starts to weaken. The world becomes active again. Farmers return to unfinished tasks. Merchants continue conversations. Children return to the streets. The river catches the golden light of the lowering sun. This is the hour when Egypt feels especially peaceful. The harshness of the day fades. The landscape becomes softer. The sounds of work blend with the sounds of evening. A fisherman pulls his boat toward shore. A shepherd gathers animals together. A worker carries tools home. Everyone begins the journey back. The road home is familiar. It is the same road traveled every morning. Dust rises beneath tired feet. The sky slowly changes color. The desert beyond the river glows with warm light. For a few moments, the entire landscape seems to pause. The fields. The villages. The river. The distant hills. Everything rests beneath the evening sky. Inside homes, families prepare for another quiet night. The same routines return. Bread is shared. Water is poured. Clothing is folded. Tools are placed aside until morning. The day becomes a memory. A child asks an older relative about something that happened many years before. The elder tells a story of another time, another flood, another harvest. The child listens carefully. These stories are part of education. They teach patience. They teach respect. They teach belonging. The past is always close in Egypt. It is present in the walls of homes. It is present in the fields. It is present in the traditions practiced every day. People do not live separate from history. They live inside it. As night covers the land again, the village becomes quiet. The same stars appear. The same river moves. The same winds cross the desert. Another day has passed almost exactly like countless days before it. And tomorrow, when the first light reaches the Nile once more, the people of Egypt will rise and continue the same ancient rhythm. They will prepare bread. They will walk the fields. They will repair tools. They will carry water. They will work beneath the sun. They will rest beneath the stars. And through these simple, repeated moments, their way of life will continue, steady and familiar, carried gently from one generation to the next. The night settles once again over the Nile Valley, covering the fields, villages, and distant desert roads in a quiet darkness. The last voices of the evening slowly disappear. The warmth of the cooking fires fades into glowing embers. Families rest inside their homes, their bodies finally released from the weight of another long day. Above the sleeping land, the stars remain unchanged. They shine over the same river that has flowed for generations. They look down upon the same fields where farmers have planted grain for centuries. They watch over the same paths where workers have carried tools beneath the morning sun. For the people of ancient Egypt, the world feels steady because so much of it remains familiar. The river returns each year. The seasons follow their patterns. The sun rises and sets in the same endless movement. Life is not measured by sudden transformations. It is measured by repetition. A person may spend an entire lifetime within a small area of land, knowing every path, every field, and every bend in the river nearby. Their world is not empty or limited. It is filled with details. They know which trees provide shade during the hottest hours. They know which sections of the river are calm enough for children to swim. They know which roads become difficult after heavy rains. They know the voices of neighbors before they even see their faces. Familiarity creates a quiet sense of belonging. As another morning approaches, the first signs of activity appear near the river. A group of fishermen pushes a boat into the water. The wood creaks softly. The current carries the vessel away from the shore. The fishermen sit quietly as they move across the river. They do not need many words. The work requires attention. They watch the surface of the water. They notice the direction of the wind. They wait patiently. Fishing teaches the same lesson that farming teaches. Not everything can be forced. Some things require waiting. A fisherman cannot command fish to appear. A farmer cannot command crops to grow faster. Both must work carefully and then allow nature to complete its part. This understanding shapes Egyptian life. Patience is not simply a virtue. It is necessary for survival. The fishermen return later with their catch, carrying baskets that will be taken to markets or shared with families. Their work connects the river to the dinner tables of villages and towns. Nearby, farmers begin preparing their fields. The morning air is still cool, and the earth is easier to work before the heat arrives. They move slowly but steadily. A wooden plow cuts into the soil. Animals pull forward. Hands guide the process. The farmer watches carefully, making adjustments when needed. The tools are simple, but the knowledge behind them is deep. A person who has worked the same land for many years understands small signs that others might miss. A slight change in the soil. A different sound from the animals. A shift in the wind. These details guide decisions. The land speaks through quiet signals. The people of Egypt learn to listen. Across the fields, irrigation channels carry water toward crops. These channels are not permanent. They require constant care. Earth collapses. Plants grow where they should not. Floodwaters reshape the landscape. So every year, people repair what has been damaged. The work may seem endless. But endless work is part of life. A wall must be repaired after years of weather. A tool must be sharpened after repeated use. A garment must be stitched when fabric becomes thin. Maintenance is everywhere. Egyptian life depends less on replacing things and more on caring for what already exists. This same idea appears inside the home. A family does not simply abandon a house because a wall becomes weak. They rebuild the damaged section. They strengthen the roof. They add new bricks beside old ones. A house becomes a record of time. Older bricks remain beside newer ones. Different generations leave their marks. A doorway may have been widened by a father many years ago. A storage room may have been added by a grandfather. A courtyard may have been shaped by the needs of a growing family. The home changes slowly, just like the people inside it. In larger towns, the same sense of continuity exists. The streets are busy, but their patterns are familiar. The same merchants open their shops. The same craftsmen work in their workshops. The same families visit the same markets. A person walking through the streets may recognize faces they have known for many years. Communities are built through repeated contact. People know who makes the best pottery. They know which baker prepares the freshest bread. They know which fisherman returns early with a full basket. Reputation is created slowly and maintained carefully. A person's place within society depends on trust. A merchant who cheats customers loses respect. A craftsman who creates poor work loses customers. A neighbor who helps others earns goodwill. Daily life is shaped by these relationships. Not every interaction is peaceful, of course. People disagree. Families experience conflicts. Neighbors sometimes argue. But most problems are handled within the community because everyone depends upon one another. Isolation is difficult in a world where survival requires cooperation. The village, the town, and the neighborhood all function through connection. As the day continues, the heat rises again. The stone walls of buildings become warm beneath the sun. The air above the roads begins to shimmer. Workers move more slowly. The afternoon becomes a time of endurance. In fields and workshops, people continue their tasks while searching for moments of relief. A worker drinks from a clay cup and feels the cool water against his tired body. A farmer sits beneath a tree and watches the movement of clouds. A craftsman wipes dust from his hands before returning to his work. These small moments provide comfort. Ancient life contains many hardships, but it also contains quiet pleasures. The taste of fresh bread. The feeling of cool water after heat. The shade of a palm tree. The sound of family voices after sunset. The beauty of the Nile at dawn. These experiences are simple, but they are deeply meaningful. In the evening, as people return home, another important part of Egyptian life begins. Rest and connection. After a day spent working separately, families come together again. A father tells his children about something that happened in the fields. A mother prepares the evening meal. Older relatives share memories. The home becomes a place where experiences are collected and passed forward. Children listen to stories about ancestors they never met. They hear about grandparents who worked the same land. They hear about old homes that no longer exist. They hear about years when the Nile rose higher than expected. Through these stories, the past remains alive. Ancient Egypt is a civilization deeply connected to memory. The past is not something distant. It is present in daily actions. When a person prepares food in the same way as their ancestors, the past continues. When a craftsman uses techniques learned from earlier generations, the past continues. When a family celebrates a tradition practiced for hundreds of years, the past continues. This connection helps explain why Egyptian life can appear so unchanged across long periods of time. The foundations are strong. The river continues. The land continues. The traditions continue. The people continue. As darkness returns, another evening begins. Lamps glow softly inside homes. The smell of cooking fills the air. The sounds of conversation drift through the streets. Somewhere, a musician plays a simple melody. The notes are gentle. They move through the night air and disappear beyond the rooftops. Music, like everything else, follows familiar patterns. Songs are passed from one person to another. Melodies are remembered. Instruments are repaired and reused. The same sounds may have filled Egyptian evenings for generations. For a moment, the boundaries between past and present become almost invisible. A child listening to music beneath the stars experiences something very similar to what another child experienced centuries before. The same sky, the same river, the same feeling of being surrounded by family, the same peaceful night. This continuity gives ancient Egypt its unique character. It is a place where time moves slowly. Not because nothing happens, but because the important parts of life remain constant. People are born. They learn. They work. They create families. They grow old. They pass their knowledge onward. The cycle continues. And now, as another night settles over the Nile Valley, the workers who carried stones, the farmers who tended fields, the fishermen who followed the river, and the families who shared their evening meals all rest beneath the same endless sky. Tomorrow will bring another sunrise. Another morning of familiar sounds. Another day of steady work. Another quiet chapter in a way of life that has endured for generations. The river will flow. The fields will awaken. The ovens will warm. The tools will be lifted. And Egypt will continue, carried forward by the ordinary hands and quiet routines of its people. Before the sun rises above the eastern desert, the Nile Valley rests beneath a blanket of deep blue darkness. The villages are quiet, the fields are still, and the narrow paths between homes sit empty beneath the fading stars. Yet even in these quiet hours, Egypt is preparing for another day. A small flame appears inside a baker's home. A hand places wood into the fire. A soft glow spreads across the room. The baker begins the same work that has been done countless times before. Grain is prepared. Dough is mixed. The oven is warmed. There is something peaceful about these repeated movements. The hands know what to do. The body remembers. The process requires no hurry. The baker understands that good bread cannot be rushed. The dough must be prepared carefully. The fire must reach the right warmth. The timing must be correct. A simple loaf of bread carries within it hours of effort from many people. Farmers who grew the grain. Workers who harvested it. Families who prepared it. When the bread is finally ready, it becomes part of the daily rhythm of Egypt. It travels to fields. It travels to workshops. It sits beside family meals. It feeds people who spend their lives building, farming, creating, and caring for others. Across the villages, similar routines begin. The first workers step outside. The first boats move onto the river. The first animals are led from their shelters. The world slowly wakes. For the people of Egypt, mornings are not beginnings in the way we often imagine them. They are continuations. Yesterday's tasks connect directly to today's. The field planted months ago now requires attention. The wall repaired last season now needs inspection. The tools created years ago continue serving their purpose. Life is a long chain of connected moments. A person is never completely separate from the generations before them. The farmer standing in his field is connected to farmers who stood there long before him. The fisherman holding his net is connected to fishermen who knew the same waters. The builder shaping stone is connected to craftsmen whose names have disappeared but whose methods remain. This connection creates a feeling of permanence. The world around them feels ancient because so much of it truly is. As morning grows brighter, workers begin moving toward the construction areas near the desert edge. The road is dusty beneath their sandals. Some carry baskets. Some carry tools. Some walk beside animals carrying heavier loads. The journey itself becomes part of the routine. They know every turn. They know every resting place. They know where the road becomes difficult beneath the hot sand. Along the way, they pass fields filled with activity. Farmers bend over crops. Children carry messages between homes. Merchants prepare for travel. The entire landscape is connected by movement. Although Egypt appears stable and unchanging, it is always active. Thousands of small actions happen every day. A single family preparing breakfast. A fisherman repairing a net. A worker lifting a stone. A scribe recording information. A woman weaving linen. A child learning a household task. Together, these ordinary actions create the life of the civilization. At the construction site, the morning begins with preparation. Tools are inspected. Materials are organized. Workers gather in groups. Everyone knows their responsibilities. The organization required for large projects depends upon many people performing small tasks correctly. Some workers shape stones. Some transport materials. Some prepare food. Some maintain tools. Some provide water. Behind every visible achievement are countless unseen efforts. A monument is not created by stone alone. It is created by human patience. The workers themselves live ordinary lives. When the day's labor ends, they return to homes where families wait. They worry about the same things as everyone else. They hope for good health. They hope for enough food. They hope their children will have secure futures. Their lives are not only defined by work. They are also filled with affection, friendship, and small moments of happiness. During breaks, workers sometimes sit together beneath the shade. They share stories. They laugh quietly. They talk about places they have visited or people they miss. Some workers have traveled from distant villages and live away from their families for periods of time. They carry memories of home. They remember the sound of their own village. They remember familiar faces. They remember the riverbank where they grew up. Even in the middle of great projects, ordinary human emotions remain unchanged. Homesickness. Hope. Tiredness. Pride. Love. These feelings connect ancient people to all generations that follow. As the day becomes hotter, the desert air grows heavy. The workers continue. The sun watches from above. The stone beneath their hands becomes warm. The dust settles over everything. Clothing. Tools. Faces. But the work continues quietly. There is no expectation of immediate results. A single day changes very little. A single week changes very little. But years of steady effort create something lasting. This idea appears throughout Egyptian life. The people understand slow progress. A child becomes an adult gradually. A seed becomes a crop gradually. A home becomes a family place gradually. A tradition becomes ancient gradually. Nothing important happens instantly. The entire civilization is shaped by patience. In the afternoon, when the heat becomes strongest, many people slow down. Inside homes, families rest. The thick mud brick walls provide some relief from the sun. Small windows allow air to move through the rooms. Mats are placed on the floor. Clay jars keep water cool. The home becomes a quiet shelter. For a while, the outside world feels distant. A mother sits with her children. An older relative repairs a piece of clothing. Someone prepares ingredients for the evening meal. The sounds are gentle. A grinding stone. A quiet conversation. The movement of hands working. These moments are simple, but they form the heart of daily existence. The ancient Egyptian home is not filled with many possessions. Instead, it is filled with relationships. People depend upon one another. A family survives because everyone contributes. Children help. Adults work. Elders provide guidance. Each person has a role. This shared responsibility creates strong connections. Later in the day, when the sun begins to lower, people return outside. The air becomes easier to breathe. The roads become active again. Markets continue until evening. Farmers finish their final tasks. Fishermen return with their catch. Craftsmen clean their workshops. The golden light of sunset spreads across the land. This is the time when Egypt appears most peaceful. The harsh colors of midday soften. The river reflects the sky. The desert becomes quiet. The villages glow beneath the fading sun. A person standing beside the Nile at this moment might feel that time itself has slowed. The landscape has seen so many generations that one lifetime feels like a brief passing moment. Yet every individual life matters. Every person adds something to the continuing story. A farmer's careful work feeds a village. A fisherman's effort provides food. A craftsperson's skill creates objects used by others. A mother's daily labor keeps a family strong. A child's learning ensures that knowledge continues. The civilization survives because ordinary people continue. Night arrives slowly. The same lamps appear in windows. The same fires glow in courtyards. The same stars rise above the river. Families gather once again. The day's worries become quieter. The sounds of labor disappear. The body begins to relax. A worker lies down after a long day and feels the weight of exhaustion. His hands are tired. His muscles ache. But there is comfort in the familiar. Tomorrow will come with more work. More responsibilities. More repetition. Yet also more familiar moments. The taste of bread. The sound of the river. The warmth of family. The quiet beauty of another evening beside the Nile. And as Egypt falls asleep beneath the endless sky, the ancient rhythm continues. The same river moves through the darkness. The same winds cross the fields. The same routines wait for the morning. Generation after generation, the people of Egypt live within this gentle cycle, finding stability in the things that remain unchanged. The night has become very still now. Along the banks of the Nile, the villages have fallen into silence. The voices that filled the streets during the day have disappeared. The markets are empty. The workshops are quiet. The fields rest beneath the darkness. Only the river continues moving. Slowly. Peacefully. The water passes beside sleeping homes, carrying reflections of the moon and stars. It flows past fields that have been planted and harvested by countless generations. It flows past paths where farmers once walked before sunrise, carrying tools across their shoulders. So much of ancient Egypt was built from ordinary moments. A loaf of bread prepared before dawn. A fishing net repaired beside the river. A child learning a task from a parent. A worker resting beneath the evening sky after a long day. These small moments may seem simple, but they were the foundation of everyday life. They created the rhythm that carried families forward through centuries. The great monuments of Egypt were made from stone, but the life of Egypt was made from people. From farmers who cared for the fields. From fishermen who followed the river. From craftsmen who shaped simple materials into useful objects. From scribes who preserved knowledge. From mothers and fathers who passed traditions to their children. Their names may have disappeared with time, but their daily lives remain part of the ancient world they helped create. The people of Egypt lived close to the rhythms of nature. They knew the warmth of the sun. They knew the coolness of the river. They knew the feeling of dust beneath their sandals. They knew the comfort of returning home after a long day. Their lives were not filled with constant change. Instead, they were shaped by familiar patterns. The rising and falling of the Nile. The turning of the seasons. The planting and gathering of crops. The passing of knowledge from one generation to another. For thousands of years, these patterns remained. And perhaps that was the quiet strength of Egypt. Not only the temples. Not only the monuments. Not only the names carved into stone. But the countless ordinary people who woke each morning and continued. They continued when the days were difficult. They continued when the heat was heavy. They continued when life demanded patience. They continued because life itself was built upon continuation. Now, as the final hours of night settle over the Nile Valley, imagine those ancient homes once more. The mud-brick walls standing quietly beneath the stars. The soft glow of a fading lamp. The sound of the river moving beyond the doorway. A family sleeping after another ordinary day. A farmer resting before returning to the fields. A fisherman waiting for morning. A worker closing tired eyes beneath the endless Egyptian sky. The world around them is peaceful. The desert is silent. The river is calm. The stars watch over the land as they have always done. And slowly, the night grows deeper. The sounds become softer. The thoughts become quieter. The ancient world gently fades into the distance. What remains is only the peaceful image of Egypt beside the Nile. A river flowing. A village resting. A warm breeze moving across the fields. A civilization carried forward by simple hands and quiet routines. And as the last light of the evening disappears, the people of ancient Egypt continue their eternal rest beneath the stars, surrounded by the same calm river, the same peaceful sky, and the timeless rhythm of a world that once moved slowly beside the Nile.